What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. We're here with another week of picks and predictions. I can't believe it. We're at the end of the season. College football championship weekend. We're at the end of the road before the 12-team playoff. First iteration of the 12-team playoff. And I'm super excited. It's gonna be super fun. It's gonna be crazy. I'm not sure how much impact these games will have on the overall rank. The ranks don't come out till tomorrow for potential who's getting in. Alabama, South Carolina. Are they gonna give Miami that spot? I don't know. Who knows what's gonna happen in that? Or a sleeper team is Iowa State, but Big 12 doesn't get any respect in that realm. They always view the SEC as their 3 losses are significantly better than whatever other garbage team there is. But super excited to do these picks and predictions with you guys. Very great and fun year so far with all of you. Great and fun year with all of you. Our channel has been growing pretty good. But if you guys would like to support the channel and let us get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the year, bless my heart. Please like and subscribe in this video. Help out the channel immensely. But let's get right into these picks and predictions. So first off, we're starting with the CUSA Championship. I know it's a real winner of a game. They're on Friday, 7 p.m. Jacksonville State versus Western Kentucky. I know a lot of you guys probably on the channel really lock in on these group of 5 teams like I do. But this is a rematch from the final game of the season for these two. Western Kentucky came out on top this last time, but I have the Gamecocks to take the lead on this one to win the CUSA. I think Gamecocks are just a better team overall. Western Kentucky really played their heart out this last time, but I think the Gamecocks on a neutral field is really going to handle business on this one. I think they're going to win 23-21. I think it's going to be very close. I think it's going to be a 1-score game. Most of these championships have the spread at 1 score, so I take that with a grain of salt with my own predictions, but I do think there's going to be a 1-score game on this one. Next, we have is Friday, 8 p.m. We have Boise versus UNLV. This is the game. No, I'm just kidding. It's not the game of the week at all, but it's going to be a fun game to see which teams from the Mountain West are going into the championship, because with the American League out and about, gone in the wind, Tulane with their loss against Memphis, and Army just out of the rankings entirely after a loss against Notre Dame. This will be very fun to watch to see which team will get in. No matter what happens in this game, the American Conference will not be skipping them. So this is a good game to watch here. Boise coming out with a huge season, barely losing to Oregon near the beginning, and then just took flight for the rest of the year. Ashton Jeanty looking his best all year long. And then they're playing against UNLV. This is a rematch for all of you guys who don't know. Boise did come out on top the last time they did play. UNLV has been looking a little better since that loss. But I do have the Boise State winning this game 35-28. I think that Ashton Jeanty and Boise State have something to prove this year. That's why they went toe-to-toe with the number 1 team in the league, and I don't think they're going to let UNLV hold them from that opportunity to get that first-round bye and potentially play for a national title. Not saying they will. Definitely not saying they will. Don't quote me on that, but they will be competing for one. Next is Friday, 8 p.m., last Friday game of the weekend. We have Army versus Tulane. I know you guys are looking at Army and saying there's a rank there. Yes, I use AP poll. If I didn't mention it earlier in the video, which I probably didn't, I use AP rankings just because they are up to date on all the rankings, and the CFP rankings don't come out tomorrow, and I'm trying to get these videos out to you early on Monday. No questions here. So, Army versus Tulane. Tulane had an opportunity. I don't know if you saw a couple of my past videos. I talked about Tulane making the playoffs and potentially skipping the Big 12, etc., etc. And no sooner after I post that video, the day after, Tulane loses to Memphis, and that video just becomes obsolete and irrelevant. But, you guys can check that out video if you guys really want to. But Army versus Tulane, I think Tulane is still a better team, even though with that loss to Memphis, was a good program. They are 25th in the AP right now, and I think Army they're good within their own bubble. Against American teams, they're pretty good. But Tulane is one of those American teams that kind of sit outside the American Conference, where if Tulane really wanted to, they could go to play in Power 5 and compete at the highest level with no issues. It's just, I don't know, Tulane likes tradition. They like the American Conference. They like all this other crap. Some of the reasons they gave on why they're not going to the Pac-12, which probably was just money, but, they had to save face. But I do think Tulane is a better team here, which is why I have them winning 24-17. Army is a very slow to clock down kind of team, and I don't think Tulane is any Notre Dame, so I don't think Tulane is going to be running up the score anytime soon. But I do think it's going to be a lower scoring matchup. I think that Tulane is going to get the upper hand like they did against Navy. But since this is on a neutral field, I think that it's going to be a little bit closer than the Navy game overall. First Saturday game of the weekend we have is at noon. We have ASU versus Iowa State. Congratulations, Iowa State. Give it a round of applause for Iowa State getting their first 10 wins ever. Program history. I never actually knew that statistic. I'm an Iowa Hawkeye fan, and we play Iowa State every year, and I'm just like, oh, some years Iowa State's better, but I did know that Iowa State has never had a 10-win season. I don't know if this is the first time they've ever been at the Big 12 Championship. Don't quote me on that. It might not be because the stats didn't show up to say this is their first Big 12 Championship game. So I think that Iowa State here has an opportunity to really compete at the highest level. But ASU also is another one of those sleeper teams who just came from the Pac-12 first year in, and they're competing for a Big 12 Championship game. And I will say that ASU does look like a better team. They are a stronger team. I know both these teams lost to pretty sloughy opponents. ASU, I think it was Texas Tech, Cincinnati. Iowa State, they lost to Texas Tech and Kansas. So they both lost to Texas Tech. And then Iowa State played the Dream Killer. Cincinnati, I don't know what happened there with Iowa State. That was a gimme game. I remember I was talking to some of my coworkers at my full-time job. This isn't my full-time job if you believe it. But I was talking about ASU. And we were talking about the potential week. And we were like, it's an easy win. They can get to that BYU game with only one loss. But they lost Cincinnati, which kind of like threw a wrench in their system and potentially made ASU have to compete with an American team for this championship. And the Big 12 was almost outside looking in, like two group of fives going to pass them. But, with group of fives, there's very unpredictable, which we saw with Tulane. But in this game, I think that it's going to be a very close matchup. But I do have the upper hand on one of these two teams. I do think that ASU will squeeze out the victory. This is probably going to be a one-score game. It's going to be back. I think it's going to be back and forth. I think ASU has a very strong offense, but I do not think that their defense is up to the level that one would want against an Iowa State offense that has been predominant within their own sphere of influence. So I do think that ASU will edge a win out. It's going to be a last-minute field goal, last-minute touchdown, or just last-minute something, or potentially an interception near the end where Iowa State turns the ball over or they miss a field goal. So I do think it comes down to the absolute wire. This will be a very exciting game right there at noon o'clock. Next noon o'clock game we have is another non-interesting group of five teams. I know a lot of you guys don't really like group fives, which is why I'm not going to talk too much about their prowess unless they really have an impact, such as like Boise and them and the Army and all that stuff. They have ranked teams. Ohio versus Miami, Ohio, the Redhawks, the MAC championship. Both these teams are fairly good. They're both 7-1 in their conference, but they both have like 4-3 losses overall, which is why you don't really see them in the rankings. I think arguably Miami, Ohio is one of the best teams in the MAC, and I think that shows it in the season, which is why I have Miami, Ohio winning this game 35-21. This is a rematch game, and I do think Miami, Ohio is a better team. On a neutral site, I think Miami, Ohio wins 9 out of 10 times. This is probably arguably one of the games of the week, probably one of the more closer games of the week outside of the Big Ten. But I do think the SEC game at 4 o'clock Eastern will be one of the most watched games of the weekend. Don't quote me on it, but I do think it's going to be one of the most watched. I have Texas versus Georgia. Rematch. Georgia dominated Texas the first time they played. It was in Texas, so like this rematch is going to be on a neutral field, so it's not like Texas played in Georgia and they lost. This is Texas trying to have a redemption arc against a team that humiliated them essentially on the field. Rematch of the century, where Georgia and Texas it's going to be awesome. This game's going to be great. I hope it's going to be great. But which is why I have them winning 27-20. I think Georgia is just a more complete team overall. I think it's going to be an upset. As the spread shows, Texas is favored by like a field goal. I think Georgia's going to win this game. And I think it's going to look like Georgia had this game won at the beginning. I have Georgia winning this 27-20. They already competed in Longhorn territory with Longhorn fans. Now we're at a neutral site field, and Georgia is going to come in blaze it. I think that the coaching staff for the Georgia team is superior. They can play the mind games. They can play the game. They're out here playing chess. Texas is out there playing checkers. And I think Georgia's going to win this game pretty easily, 27-20. It's going to be a one-score game. I think Texas is going to try to keep up as best they can, but Georgia's going to keep running away with the scoring. Next Saturday game we have is Marshall. We are Marshall. If you get it, if you know, you know, versus the Raging Cajuns. So we have is the Sun Belt Football Championship. I like the logo. It's pretty cool. I think that the logos of these championship games should be cool. I think that some of them, Big Ten, SEC, I think their logos suck. But I think that some of these other smaller conferences definitely go crazy. And as you can see, we're only talking about the logos when we should be talking about football. But this game is not interesting. It's not going to be that great to watch. I think Louisiana is a very good team. The Herd is all right. I think the Sun Belt Conference isn't as good with JMU not being dominant. So I think this game will be close, but I don't think it's going to be that close. I don't think it's going to be that interesting overall. These teams are kind of boring to watch. Not going to lie, the Group of Five is very interesting sometimes. I watch these games every once in a while, but like a lot of times the announcers suck. They don't put enough money into the game to really make it interesting. So I have Louisiana Raging Cajuns winning this game against the Herd, 29-21. I do love a little Group of Five action. I'll probably have all these games up at the same time, watching all of them, but I would not be surprised if you guys don't turn this one on. Next game, 8 o'clock. We have is Oregon versus the Nittany Lions. Penn State sneaking its way into the rankings after arguably one of Ohio State's most dominant years. Ohio State, Ryan Day, what is he? 47-1 in the Big Ten play. He keeps losing to Michigan, and you're sneaking your way into that. And then Indiana's outside looking in, going, we don't have to play the Duckies. That's what we don't have to do. So I think Oregon is a great team, superior. I know watch other YouTubers who do these kind of like things. Matt Be Great is a prominent one, probably one of the bigger ones that aren't just like people who work for ESPN or Fox. And he talks about Oregon as like this elite team. But like they are a good team. Oregon is a great team. They have a lot of good talent on their team. They play a lot of good football on offensive and defensive side of the ball. But if you watch them week to week, you're going, okay, so they are dominant. But for example, if you watch that Wisconsin game, it really showed a lot of those kinks in the armor. And I would argue that all the rankings from 1 to even 14 are pretty interchangeable for the most part. Like some people just get unlucky with their wins. So like Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, those teams are almost identical when it comes to like quality, like ceiling versus not ceiling. They're outside looking in. As of today, there's going to be some changes in that one. But like everyone from like 11 down, I would argue that could be interchanged for each other. There's not a single team in there that could say they could dominate them every single time, or even like most of the time. If we flip, it's a flip of a coin for most of these teams. I think if Oregon played Ohio State 10 times, I think Oregon would win 5, maybe 6 times, and Ohio State win the other 5 or 4 times. Because Oregon is a better team on paper, but I think that there is a lot of competition when it comes to all these programs. So, and with that being said, I think this game is going to be a lot closer than one would think. One would think that Oregon could dominate this team, kind of like what Ohio State did to Penn State, where what people are going, oh, they only won by 10 points. But if you watch the game, Penn State went up 10-0, then Ohio State went on a 20-0 run, pretty much sealing in the deal, and Penn State was trying to figure it out, trying to figure out the game. But I think in a neutral site field, neutral game here, I think that Oregon and Penn State could keep up with each other, which is why I have them losing to Oregon. I have Penn State losing. I don't think Penn State's going to beat Oregon, but I do think that Penn State could keep up with Oregon, and that's what I'm trying to say is that Oregon is a dominant team, but I don't think they are the most dominant team in NCAA. Kind of like Georgia years ago, where Georgia was just dominant. Everyone you watched the 14 playoff, and they just ran through every team. I don't think they're that level. I think they're a great team. I think they're a really good team, but I don't think they're elite. I don't think there's a single elite team this year due to like other unforeseen circumstances, such as like transfer portal, NIL deals, and things like that, which then allows other teams to compete at the highest level. As before, teams would keep those players, to recruit the highest level of talented players, and just keep them all to themselves. And then now people can expand and enjoy the fruit. Next, we have Saturday. We have SMU versus Clemson. Last game of the weekend. SMU is coming up with an undefeated record in ACC play. 1 loss on their record to BYU. BYU is ranked, so it's not like they're like Notre Dame, which to me is crazy to think about. So like you have SMU, who has one loss in the record, as an ACC, and then you have Notre Dame, which also has one loss in the record, and they play I think about half their schedule with ACC talent, and the other half is like whatever they choose. And SMU's lost to a ranked team, BYU, who at the time was not ranked, and then Notre Dame lost to NIU, who at the time was not ranked, and then only was ranked in the AP poll 1 week, and it's barely above 500. And their argument to Notre Dame is that they're dominating teams. If you looked at the last 3 weeks of SMU playing, they've been dominating these teams, like running up the score. Like I think Notre Dame and SMU are about equal when it comes to the level of domination that is being portrayed. And SMU's in a conference, and they're competing for a conference championship. My opinion is that if SMU wins ACC, they should be higher ranked overall. They will be in the seeding, but I think they should be ranked above Notre Dame, and Notre Dame should be put back because SMU, undefeated in ACC play, only lost to a ranked team, and they're dominating on most weeks in football. Clemson, on the other hand, this is a good team. Clemson's good, and I think that Clemson could have an opportunity here to make it in, even though they're way outside looking in. And I think that SMU and Clemson, I think it's going to be a good game, and I think that SMU has something to prove here because their schedule has been a little rocky when it comes to like talent. They played Pittsburgh when they were undefeated. They played a couple other talent-wise, and they essentially won all of that. They beat every test that came to them, which is why I have SMU dominating this game. I said at the end of the video that there's going to be not every game is going to be close like the spread says, and I think SMU has a chance to dominate this game. I think that SMU is going to take Clemson, all those kinks in the armor that Clemson has, on a neutral site field and win 35-17. Mark my word, it's going to be a domination. It's not necessarily the same score, but I think that they're going to win by at least 1.5 to 2 scores ahead of Clemson. And finally, we have the Iowa Hawkeyes like we do every week, and these picks and predictions. Iowa Hawkeyes seems to have a bye week this week, and the college football landscape must have put them. So Iowa's going to win this week 100-0, and we'll see them in a crappy bowl game somewhere in the South somewhere. But that's going to be it for this video. If you like what you saw, please like and subscribe. Peace.